Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtatar Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtatar Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, text 24. Puryam kadachit kridabihi yadu boja kumarakai kopitaha munayah shipu bhagavat mata kovidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Yadu boja kumarakai Kopita munaya shipur Bhagavan matako vidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Yadu boja kumarakai Kopita munaya shipur Bhagavan matako vidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Yadu boja kumarakai Kopita munaya shipur Bhagavan matako vidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Yadu boja kumarakai Kopita munaya shipur Bhagavan matako vidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Yadu boja kumarakai Kopita munaya shipur Bhagavan matako vidaha Puryam kadachit kridad bir Boja kumarakahi Kovidaha. Kadachit Kridandbir Yaduboja Kumarakayi Vita Munaya Shepur Matako Vidaha. Matajis? Puryam Kadachit Kridadbir Yaduboja Kumarakai Kopita Munaya Shepur Bhagavan Matako Vidaha. Puryam Kadachit Kridadbir Yaduboja Kumarakai Kopita Munaya Shepur Bhagavan Matako Vidaha. Puryam Kadachit Kridadbir Yaduboja Kumarakai Kopita Munaya Shepur Bhagavan Matako Vidaha. Puryam, in the city of Dwarka, Kadachit, once upon a time, Kridad Bihi, by sporting activities, Yadu, the descendants of Yadu, Boja, the descendants of Boja, Kumarakai, princes, Kopitaha, became angry, Munayaha, the great sages, Shepu, cursed, Bhagavat, the personality of Godhead, Mata, desire, Kovidaha, cognizant. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Boja dynasties. And thus, as desired by the Lord, the sages cursed them. Purport: the associates of the Lord who were playing the part of princely descendants of the Yadu and Boja dynasties were not ordinary living entities. It is not possible that they could offend any saintly man or sage, nor could the sages, who were all pure devotees of the Lord, be influenced to anger by any of the sporting activities of the princes born in the holy dynasties of Yadu or Boja, wherein the Lord himself appeared as a descendant. The cursing of the princes by the sages was another transcendental pastime of the Lord to make a show of anger. The princes were cursed in order that one may know that even the descendants of the Lord, who could never be vanquished by any act of material nature, were subjected to the reactions of anger by great devotees of the Lord. One should therefore take great care and attention not to commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sehitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Danavirga Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtratade Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So at the beginning of the purport, we were hearing how the associates of the Lord, it's not possible that they could offend any saintly man or sage Nor could the sages, who were all pure devotees of the Lord, be influenced to anger by any of the sporting activities of the princes. So, when I was reading that, the first thing I was thinking is, it wasn't possible for them to offend any devotees of the Lord, but it's definitely possible for me and anyone else in the conditioned state of material existence. So, like 99% of people in this world. And that offending the devotees of the Lord is described a lot throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, how it completely stops one's progress of life. Their spiritual advancement is stopped. Any good quality in their life is stopped. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita how there's no loss or diminution on the path of devotional service. So at first it can seem kind of confusing that how can one go backwards in devotional service or lose the progress that they were making. But it's not that they lose any sort of progress in devotional service, but it's just completely stopped for that time being. And if that offense is resolved, then we see, like in the example with Daksha in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that he immediately picks back up where he left off. But before that, his life was really horrible. It became a big mess. So we see that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Daksha, who is a Prajapati, and he was very powerful, when he enters this sacrifice that's going on, he looks just like the sun god. He's so effulgent. So many people paid their respects to him, and Lord Shiva, who's there, who is his son-in-law, Daksha expected him to pay respects since he's his father-in-law, but Lord Shiva was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he just stayed in that state, and Daksha became very offended and begins to say all sorts of insults to Lord Shiva in front of all of these personalities there. I can read some of them so we can see the severity of the position that Daksha got himself into. So, once he didn't feel respected by Lord Shiva, which actually it wasn't the case. Lord Shiva wasn't disrespecting him in any way, but Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, in some of the purports in this section of the Bhagavatam, that Lord Shiva, he was actually meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. So there was no need for him to externally pay some sort of respect to Daksha, because Lord Shiva was already paying respects to the super soul who's in everyone's heart and in Daksha's heart. But anyways, Daksha still felt offended. So his false pride being pricked, he got up in this assembly and he began to tell everybody there. All sages, Brahmana... Oh, actually, I can put it on the screen if you like. Here we go. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport how Daksha was actually speaking in an unmannerly way and out of envy. But to preface his insults, he said, I do not speak out of envy. It's kind of like a no offense, but type of situation. So he's saying, I'm not speaking out of envy. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners. Because he is shameless, he does not know how to act. So it's such a horrible situation. He's saying these things in front of a great assembly, calling Shiva shameless and all these things. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and brahmanas. He has married my daughter, who is equal to Gayatri, and has pretended to be just like an honest person. He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. So you can see the insults he's saying are completely outlandish, and he's saying them to one of the topmost devotees of the Lord. So there's a lot of transcendental smack talk in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this one really stands out of all of them. But we also see in the Srimad Bhagavatam that no one is actually better at these insults than Krishna. Like if you hear when Jarasandha is attacking Krishna, there's many great insults that he tells to Jarasandha. I think one of them, Jarasandha. Jarasandha, he was trying to do a lot of smack talk to Krishna, and in return Krishna told him, actually, heroes don't speak very much. They speak by their actions. So this one was a really crushing blow to Jarasandha. And then there's another instance where Pundrika, he writes this letter to Krishna explaining that he's actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Krishna is just imitating, and Krishna should give up this farce and send over all the emblems and things that Vishnu would hold, because actually they belong to Pundrika. And Krishna's reply in there is also very devastating. He tells Pundrika that he's soon going to be eaten by dogs once he's dead on the battlefield. So no one's actually better at this smack talk than Krishna, but here we see Daksha's doing it in a really heinous way. He was offended by Lord Shiva, and now he's saying things that don't even relate to the so-called offense that Shiva made. He's saying his eyes look like monkeys and all of these things. But then the actual truth comes out, that he felt offended because, as he says, nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words. So it could sound like Lord Shiva made an offense, but actually the problem here was that Daksha was envious from the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada says in the purports. So that's an important principle, is understanding if we ourselves are envious or angry towards others without reason before thinking, okay, I'm going to chastise this person. Someone told me they heard from Parmeshwar Prabhu that he said, if you're going to throw the thunderbolt, you have to be 100% sure. And he was speaking of, calling someone out or chastising them. So Daksha goes on and on, and he insults Lord Shiva so much. And then his whole life is pretty much ruined because of that. He curses Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva's associates curse some of his associates, and it's this whole back and forth cursing battle. And Lord Shiva's wife, Sati, later on, she goes to her father's place. She's insulted by her father. She gives up her body. She kills herself. And then Lord Shiva has this whole army of his ghostly followers come and just destroy the sacrifice of Daksha. And the result of it is that Daksha is left without his normal head anymore, and he has a goat's head. So he's really in a suffering condition. Their whole sacrifice is destroyed. And it's a great example of what happens when one offends a devotee of the Lord. That offense, it's called the mad elephant offense, because if you have a garden and you're trying to grow nice plants in there, if a mad elephant comes in, anything growing in that garden is completely destroyed. So like that, we're growing this creeper of devotional service and watering it with hearing and chanting and following the instructions of the spiritual master. And if one offends a devotee, it's just like making an elephant come along and it just completely destroys it. But we see that this predicament can be resolved, like in the case of Daksha, where later, once he sees Lord Shiva with respect and proper honor, then immediately everything is resolved. Vishnu comes to his sacrifice, and it all becomes like a perfect sacrifice from where he left off, because he gave up his offensive mentality and saw the person who he was offending in the proper light and paid his respects to them. So that's explained throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, how if one makes an offense to a devotee, the only way to resolve it is by actually begging forgiveness from that devotee. Like we see the example with Ambarish Maharaj, when Durvasa Muni had made an offense to him and created this great, huge, fiery demon to destroy him, there was nothing Durvasa Muni could do to save himself. He went all over the universe, running from the Sudarshan chakra of Krishna. He even went to the spiritual world and asked to be protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who told him, actually, there's nothing I can do. You'll have to beg forgiveness from my devotee. And until Durvasa Muni went and he paid his obeisances to Ambarish Maharaj. You can see there's a nice painting of it where he's like laying flat in front of Ambarish Maharaj and the Sudarshan chakra is coming behind him. Until he actually did that and begged for forgiveness, there was no hope for him. But once he did that, there was no problem. And Ambarish Maharaj actually was asking forgiveness from Durvasa Muni. He was saying, I'm sorry, I actually I shouldn't have been such a bad host to a guest. I should have been more considerate. So you see, devotees are actually very compassionate. So it's actually very easy for one to resolve this predicament of making an offense if they can humbly approach the devotee who they offended and ask for forgiveness. And this example of the boys in the Yadu dynasty who offended these sages, they were more or less playing a prank on the sages. Tapas Prabhu, can you put that? I've sent you a picture in the WhatsApp. There's a painting of it if you could put it up. The boys in the Yadu dynasty, you can see they're pretending that one of them is a pregnant woman. He's got this something under his shirt. And you can also see around them there's all these monkeys to show it's really some monkey business going on here. It's just jokes and playing around. But they're playing around with people that they really shouldn't be messing around with. And you can see these exalted sages there. I think that it's also Narada Muni in the front. So it's not the place to be horseplaying, but they must have been pretty puffed up because they're thinking, let's pull a prank on these sages. And the result of that is that their whole dynasty is destroyed. And we heard at the beginning of the purport, it's not actually possible for these Yadu and Bhoja dynasties to make any sort of mistake, and it's not possible for these great sages and devotees to do that either. But this is all going on as a pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's arranging the whole situation, just like he arranged for Arjuna to be temporarily bewildered at Kurukshetra. So their whole dynasty is destroyed because of this. The sages tell them that, okay, the kids ask them, is it going to be a boy or a girl? And the sages told them, you're actually going to give birth to this lump of iron that will be the death of your whole dynasty. What is it? To an iron mace. So someone tries to grind down that iron. It's a whole story. This iron grows into iron once it's ground down into fine powder and thrown into the water that reaches the shore in Prabhas Kshetra, where it grows into these iron reeds. And then all of the Yadu dynasty, they get into a fight, as we heard a few verses earlier, after drinking rice wine. They get into this fight that's arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where they all take each other out, and then that way the whole dynasty goes back to where they were before. So we see that offending the devotees of the Lord is a serious situation, and it doesn't work out well. Srila Prabhupada said at the end of the purport that one should therefore take great care and attention not to commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord. And Krishna arranges this pastime to show that no one's actually free from the reaction of the anger of devotees of the Lord. I was reading in glimpses of traditional life in Vedic India. There's the did I just mess up the title? Sorry. Glimpses of traditional Indian life. So there's an example in there where one devotee was explaining how in their village there were brahmanas and they weren't exactly Paka devotees, but still everyone there was this strong idea, even in the families that weren't super religious, there was a strong idea of not to offend the brahmanas, and there was a big fear of the curse of a brahmana. So he was saying that was one of the prominent things that stood out to him in his upbringing as far as religious things go. He remembered this, no one wanted to get cursed by a brahmana. What were some other examples? There's an example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of this Gopala Chapala who offends the devotees, and he gets leprosy as a result of that. And Lord Chaitanya says some extremely heavy words to him, even when he asks Lord Chaitanya if he can be relieved of this suffering condition he's in. Lord Chaitanya tells him, I'll actually have you bitten by these germs for millions of years. So he doesn't forgive him. And then this person, Gopala Chapala, is just lamenting. Here, I'll read part of it. I'll put it up on the screen. One night while kirtan was going on inside Srivas Thakur's house, a brahmana named Gopal Chapala, the chief of the non-believers, who was talkative and very rough in his speech, placed all the paraphernalia for worshipping the goddess Durga outside Srivas Thakur's door. On the upper portion of a plantain leaf, he placed such paraphernalia for worship as oda pula, turmeric, vermilion, red sandalwood, and rice. We see how this rough speech, if there's no use for it, it's not like a good quality, just to be randomly speaking roughly. It can be used in the Lord's service, but if it's just, I also read in that same book, glimpses of traditional Indian life, that someone was explaining, I forget the name, but there was one devotee, and he was explaining how nowadays there's no culture, and people speak roughly just all the time, without any reason. So I see that quality in myself too sometimes, just for no reason. There's not any cause for it. People nowadays will just speak roughly, even for just simple matters. Just like someone asks you, how are you doing? And it's like, good. And they're just like, get out of my face. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because in a Vedic culture, actually, people speak very nicely. We see that throughout the whole Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But in an uncultured society, people speak roughly for no reason, like this Gopal Chapala. He placed a pot of wine beside all this, and in the morning when Srivas Thakur opened his door, he saw this paraphernalia. Srivas Thakur called for all the respectable gentlemen of the neighborhood and smilingly addressed them as follows. Gentlemen, every night I worship the goddess Bhavani. Since the paraphernalia for the worship is present here, now all you respectable brahmanas and members of the higher caste can understand my position. Then all the assembled gentlemen exclaimed, What is this? What is this? Who has performed such mischievous activities? Who is that sinful man? They called for a sweeper, Hadi, who threw all the items of worship far away and cleansed the place by mopping it with a mixture of water and cow dung. After 3 days, leprosy attacked Gopal Chapala, and blood oozed from sores all over his body. Incessantly covered with germs and insects, biting him all over his body, Gopal Chapala felt unbearable pain. His entire body burned in distress. So he tried to make Srivas Thakur look foolish. He tried to put him in a bad position. And we see the immediate result is he's suffering like anything. Since leprosy is an infectious disease, Gopal Chapala left the village to sit down on the bank of the Ganges underneath a tree. One day, however, he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passing by and spoke to him as follows. My dear nephew, I am your maternal uncle in our village relationship. Please see how greatly this attack of leprosy has afflicted me. As an incarnation of God, you are delivering so many fallen souls. I am also a greatly unhappy fallen soul. Kindly deliver me by your mercy. Hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared greatly angry, and in that angry mood he spoke some words chastising him. O sinful person, envious of pure devotees, I shall not deliver you. Rather, I shall have you bitten by these germs for many millions of years. You have made Srivas Thakur appear to have been worshipping the goddess Bhavani. Simply, for this offense, you will have to fall down into hellish life for 10 million births. I have appeared in this incarnation to kill the demons, Pashandis, and after killing them to preach the cult of devotional service. After saying this, The Lord left to take his bath in the Ganges, and that sinful man did not give up his life but continued to suffer. When Sri Chaitanya, after accepting the renounced order of life, went to Jagannath Puri and then came back to the village of Kulia, upon his return, that sinful man took shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord, being merciful to him, gave him instructions for his benefit. You have committed an offense at the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur, the Lord said. First you must go there and beg for his mercy, and then if he gives you his blessings, and you do not commit such sins again, you will be freed from these reactions. Then the Brahmana, Gopal Chapala, went to Srivas Thakur and took shelter of his lotus feet. And by Srivas Thakur's mercy, he was freed from all sinful reactions. So we can see the problem and the solution. So, in a Vedic society, people are actually glorifying the devotees of the Lord, because the devotees of the Lord make everything perfect. Whatever somebody has, they should use it to serve devotees. If there's a college, there should be devotees in it. Or if there's there's so many huge stadiums all around the city. They can use them to hold giant kirtans or have devotees come there and speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever it is, you should just fill it with more and more devotees of the Lord. And in that way, the whole society gets benefited because devotees are showing the practical example of how to perfect the human form of life by engaging in Krishna's service. So to offend a devotee, it's completely contrary to like any good idea or anything productive, because it just curbs the whole purpose of life. The material world, it's like a prison that's made for the conditioned living entities to become rectified and come back to their natural state of, instead of trying to be the enjoyers, to be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord and engage in His service. So if someone interrupts that mission by stopping the devotees of the Lord in some way, it doesn't work out well for them. There's many examples of this. Actually, there was one devotee named Krishna Shravana Prabhu. He's at RVC. He was explaining how when he was in New Vrindavan, some motorcycle gang came there and shot up the temple. And I think some devotees died and many were injured. And it's an interesting story because those motorcycle gang members, they had some wrong idea. They thought someone was kidnapped by the Krishna consciousness movement. So that's why they went there. And when they were attacking the temple, one of them, it appeared that he knocked over the deity of Srimati Radharani. And when that happened, there was just this huge sound when she appeared to hit the ground. And that sound scared them all so much, even part of their gang that was very far away on like this hill somewhere in the distance, that they all packed up and got out of there. And Krishna Shravana Prabhu was explaining that he or another devotee was distributing books at a grocery store some years later, and someone approached him whose whole body was just burned like anything. He looked all distorted. And this person was asking if he was like a Hare Krishna, and he told him yes. And then this burned person was saying that he was part of that motorcycle gang that went there, and afterwards, like shortly after, he got in some car accident where he was just like burned in the car. And he was like repenting for what happened. He was saying, I knew like what I was doing there was wrong and all these things. So we see what happens when people offend devotees of the Lord. And there's another example with Rsi-Kumar Prabhu. There's actually many examples throughout his life of this. There was one where he had a particular service to do. He was going on some long journey for this service, and he happened to interrupt a Yadava who was like enjoying with his wife. And so this Yadava became very angry, and he began to beat Rasikananda, and Rasikananda started actually apologizing to him. He was saying, why are you beating me like this? think he was asking if it might be like he might hurt his fists or something like this by beating him. And so the Yadava was like astonished by the humility of Rsi-Kumar Prabhu, and he immediately stopped beating him. And I think he apologized there, but still, right after, all of his property was lost, and all of his wives died, and some other things were lost as well. And eventually he surrendered to the feet of Rsi-Kumar Prabhu, and it actually explains in this book about Rsi-Kumar Prabhu that all of his property was restored after that. I don't know about the wives, though, but we see it got resolved. And there's other examples in there, like there was a great king who was planning to kill Rsi-Kumar, and then some like dark figure just appears in that king's room at night and just beats him, and he's just completely terrified, and he goes and surrenders to Rsi-Kumar Prabhu. So these are some examples. There were some devotees that were actually quarreling. I remember hearing this in a Srila Prabhupada memories tape, how these two devotees kept quarreling with each other often, and Srila Prabhupada told them that they should stop taking so much Mahaprasadam. That was an interesting instruction. So that's also something to consider, is that when one is enjoying very much, or the senses are very strong, then it's easy to become, angry or proud. So he told them to stop taking so much Mahaprasadam. And in the case with these Yadavas, there was no chance of their actually being envious, because everything that they're doing is stemming from love of Krishna, pure devotional service. All of their actions are based on how can we serve Krishna better and how can Krishna enjoy. So for that reason, Srila Prabhupada was explaining in the beginning of the purport that these sages and the Yadavas, there's no chance of them actually committing offenses or becoming angered or any of these things. But for the purpose of serving the Lord, sometimes the devotees make a show of anger. And in this way, it's actually a great thing. There's nothing degrading about it. But it's another form of devotional service. So these sages, they make a show of anger and cursing the Yadavas. And we also see examples of devotees making this show of anger. Like there's one example of Srila Prabhupada at a Pandal festival. This is mentioned on Speaking Strongly in Srila Prabhupada's service. I can read part of it in a little bit, but there's a whole example of where Srila Prabhupada used anger to demonstrate a point from the Bhagavad Gita, and many people became confused, but the devotees actually learned a lot from it and could understand what was going on. And actually, the non-devotees, they can't understand that the anger of a devotee is actually a display of their utter humility. Utter humility meaning there's no tinge of anything else in it except humility, because it's not being done for any personal sense gratification or aggrandizement, but it's being done for the service of the Lord and to teach others, to help bring conditioned souls back to Krishna by teaching them like the proper way of doing things. I can read some of this section that shows this example of Srila Prabhupada using this anger in the service of the Lord. This is in On Speaking Strongly in Srila Prabhupada's service. I'm just putting it on the screen. Is the text big enough to read it? Okay. So, at a Pandal program in Delhi, in the middle of his lecture, Srila Prabhupada called a belligerent American hippie onto the stage. "Have you realized yourself?" the young man demanded. "Have you realized the soul in the innermost depths of your being?" "Yes," Srila Prabhupada replied. At first the man was taken aback, but then he again challenged, "Now you tell me another thing. When was the Bhagavad Gita written?" "Now you answer my question," Srila Prabhupada said. "What is the process of receiving knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita?" "No," the young man retorted. "You tell me, when was the Bhagavad Gita written? In your lecture you said 5,000 years ago, but according to other Swamis, it was written only 1500 years ago. Answer my question, I asked you first. Srila Prabhupada raised his voice angrily. I am not your servant, I am Krishna's servant. You must answer my question. A heated argument began with the hippie yelling at Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada arguing back. Finally, the devotees removed the boy from the stage. The incident confused the audience. Many people began to leave. Why did your Guru Maharaj become angry? Some of them demanded from the devotees. He should have answered the man's question. Some of the civic leaders supporting the Pandal program also became upset, fearing Srila Prabhupada had made an unfavorable impression on the public. Those who were devotional, however, remained in their seats to hear further what Prabhupada had to say. To the devotees, it was inconceivable. Why had Prabhupada, in the middle of his talk, invited a crazy hippie onto the stage, given him a microphone and a seat, and then argued with him to the point of yelling and shouting, and all before an audience of 20,000? And here's Bhavananda's take on the situation. One man who had helped organize the Pandal protested, "Oh, Swamiji has gotten angry. This is not good." But Srila Prabhupada seemed to have done it purposefully. He had spoken for a long time that evening on how to understand the Bhagavad Gita, and then he had this hippie brought on the stage. It was bewildering to us. We couldn't figure it out. Giriraj. Srila Prabhupada was actually using the entire incident to illustrate the process of understanding Bhagavad Gita. After the man left, Prabhupada completed his lecture by stating that one must approach Krishna or Krishna's representative with a submissive attitude, by serving and inquiring, not simply asking challenging questions. The whole incident had illustrated this point. Yadubar. Many in the audience misunderstood the incident. It caused a split. But those who understood what Srila Prabhupada had done could see that this hippie was a rascal, and this had been a time for transcendental anger against his nonsensical opinions. Tejias. After everything was over, Prabhupada told us, just as the gopis were lusty for Krishna, Arjuna would also get angry for Krishna. So it is not bad that a devotee becomes angry for Krishna. But many people in the crowd could not understand this point, how a devotee is not impersonal. So are there any comments or questions or corrections? Yes, Prabhu? Yes, Vishnu Chitta Prabhu?
You made this very interesting point at the beginning of the class. I never thought about it like that. And it raised more questions in my head, actually. And you were quoting how in Srimad Bhagavad Gita it is stated that Krishna says that there is no loss or diminution in this process. And then you said how when someone commits an offense, actually the Krishna consciousness is not lost. It just stops for the time being. But however, so we can say that the Krishna consciousness became covered?
Yeah.
Can we say like that? If we say it's covered, but is it the condition of the living entity covered also? Isn't it kind of like the same thing? Like we're also covered. We forgot our eternal relationship with Krishna. What I'm trying to understand here is how a devotee who has committed an offense and fallen down because of that, and severely, still does not go against the principle that Krishna is stating, that there is no loss or diminution in this process.
Yeah, as far as I've understood it from Srila Prabhupada's books, the devotional service the progress that they've made is still there, but it's like when people have assets in the bank, sometimes it gets frozen. So it's like it's completely frozen. They're not making any more progress, and they fall from their position. But once they come to the proper attitude, then and the proper actions, then they pick up where they left off. Like with Daksha, he was doing these sacrifices. The whole sacrifice got smashed, and then once he saw Shiva in the proper light and offered his respects to him, then he immediately picks up the sacrifice, and Lord Vishnu immediately arrives at the sacrifice. It's like it's completed. So he picked up where he left off with that. I'm trying to think of any other examples where...
Yeah, that's what I'm also thinking of. Are there other examples where they were kind of reinstated, so as to say? And then I'm trying to understand the difference between being... Because apparently it seems like they actually regress. You know, they go back, especially those who commit offenses. Prabhupada states in other locations that these, they develop material desires in the heart, and this leads to an offensive attitude. And so I'm trying to understand, like, what if they develop material desires, then that's a fall down in the conditioned living entity. I guess they come back, but I'm just trying to understand the difference between a conditioned soul who forgot Krishna and is in the material world, because we are all also eternal servants of Krishna, and versus, or maybe just that criteria just doesn't apply here. I'm not sure myself.
Can any other devotees? Yes, Prabhu? Couldn't think of any other examples.
Already we did so many offenses in spiritual world, and because of that we came here. And it's mean we already covered. And before we took so much Mahaprasadam, like you told us, because in the spiritual world it's only Mahaprasadam. Everything is Mahaprasadam. But we misuse this Mahaprasadam, became quarrel, It's mean you can take this Mahaprasadam and you can increase your bhakti, you can increase the spiritual understanding and progress, and you became like more ecstatic, more seva, more relationship, more. But we misused, and we started to quarrel, envious, and this, and already our consciousness is covered. This example about frozen is good also. When some product is frozen, and after some time it became melted because of devotional service, because of association with devotees. You became melted, and you're feeling yourself better. And when you feeling yourself better, again this is propensity to big quarrel again is also is coming your mood, because you have more power. When you're frozen, you don't have so much power, because you're like in this position when conditioned, and then became you're more powerful. And again, you can use this again in Krishna Seva, and this. You can increase your devotional, you can increase your bhakti, but because of our small, teeny independence, we can also became again envious. But not all of us. Some devotees they can use properly. You can see all the acharyas, they're using this properly. Yes, we cannot use properly, but we have examples who can use it properly, and we can do this also. We can try. As my understanding also.
Just comparing some of these analogies also of this verse, Neha Bikrama Nashosi, that there's no loss or diminution. And then you're describing Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction of the Hatimata offense, the mad elephant. And seemingly if you commit an offense against a Vaishnava, there's a ton of diminution. Because if you have a garden and an elephant comes in, it's all going to get destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about that.
That kind of what kind of confused me also a little
Yeah.
bit. But he's got a good point. I mean, Krishna cannot be wrong. But neither is the example, because it comes from Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So I was just trying to. But I think his point is kind of right. He's just frozen. I think it's right. I just wanted to see if we could turn more, get a more clearer understanding
What
of
about
that.
what about with Jai and Vijay when they offend the Kumaras, and then Krishna has them in that kind of degraded position for some time as demons, then they come back to their same position? Would that be a
Yeah, I
good
mean,
example?
that can be taken like that also. Yes, that can also be taken like that. I guess the problem is we don't have so many examples of those who have committed Vaishnava aparadha and got chastised and then I'm specifically speaking of those who, not those who sought forgiveness like this Brahmana, but then who lost devotional service for some time, and it took some time for them to get back, And they were chastised and then they were reinstated. I think we can look at the examples of there are multiple in that sense actually, multiple devotees. We think. See, Dvivida committed an offense to Lord Balaram, but again, that's not directly Vaishnava aparad. I'm trying to think of other examples of those who fell down. But there are many examples of those who committed offenses, then sought forgiveness, and then were reinstated. You can also say actually Durvasa was a devotee of the Lord also. Yeah.
Would there be any examples with Indra?
Indra is a good, there's plenty of them, yeah. Indra is plentiful and they're ultimately reinstated.
Maybe.
Something's a little fuzzy and I'm not able to put my finger to it.
Maybe also we can tell that this garden, when elephant is coming to garden, it's not like he's destroyed completely, like a devastating of material world and all. It's not like this, no.
Grow the garden back.
Yes, that's mean the structure is there, and maybe structure is there. This is the
land is there at least.
Bhakti Lata is there. It's not like he's cut this Bhakti Lata. Maybe he smashed a little bit, but then it's like it's plants also. When
That's a
you
good point.
smashed, it's not like
Roots are still there.
roots.
Seeds are there.
Everything.
Grow back eventually.
Yes, everything is there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Effort only has to be put. That's a good point. Prabhu,
Hare Krishna. I think so. It depends on the level of repentance the offender has, maybe. Because if you see the case of Jagai Magai, they immediately got relevance,
Yeah.
And if you see Dhritarashtra's case, so he didn't had any repentance for whatever offenses he has been doing, So later, by the mercy of Vaishnava, like Vidur, he got that, he came out of that offense. So if we see both the cases, the level of repentance may be defined, like till what level they will be, where they get the mercy or where they again get the process of Krishna consciousness. These two examples just came into my mind and that's what I feel.
We also have the life of a Jamil, where he was a Brahmana beforehand, or in a Brahmana family, and then he completely fell down after seeing somebody with a prostitute.
we're speaking of Vaishnava.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. Never mind. That one's different.
There's so many of that.
On the topic of like Vaishnava's cursing and the power of like the curse of Vaishnava, it reminded me of what I was reading in this book, Salted Bread. There's a really crazy story of this devotee, the main Prabhu in this book, and he's at one of these prison centers. And Sarvabhavana Prabhu. And he was in one of these prison centers, and basically the devotees were getting like abused heavily. Like, you know, every day they were getting beat up like anything. They wouldn't be able to get whatever they were asked for that other prisoners could get. You know, just treated horribly. But in particular, there's one guard who would really, really go heavy on the Hare Krishnas. You know, he just like heavy like anything. And one day, just randomly, they were doing a check, and he like randomly started abusing Rsi-Kumar Prabhu like big time. You know, punched him in the stomach and then dragged him to like some room somewhere. And it was like, you know, I know you didn't confess where the books were, but now you're gonna tell me. And he proceeded just to completely like abuse him. You know, really bad, to the point that he became blind in one eye, and he had permanent damage on his spine. Even to this day, there's like, it causes him a lot of problems with spine. But in that book, it talks about after that, he was like bedridden for a while. And he said that this was the only person that he sincerely cursed in his life. He was cursing him like anything. You know, like, you know, you this rascal, I hope he burns in the worst kind of way. You know, the son of a gun, like, you know, I hope he suffers. They cursed him completely. And so then, not long after that, all the guards in the whole facility was acting really like weird, like almost scared, and they was trying to figure out why. And then they told the Rsi-Kumar Prabhu that actually this, the point is this dude who was beating him up every day, he was explaining that his wife, he would go back to his wife, and the wife would ask him, you know, have you beat up a Hare Krishna today? And he'd tell him, and he would say like, why, you know, why, you know, if I don't beat up a Hare Krishna, then she will not satisfy my senses. Why would I do that? Now, of course, I'll beat up a Hare Krishna every day. So like this, and so then that's what transpired. Beat him up really badly that day. So he cursed him like anything, and he died along with his wife and his children in a car crash, off a cliff. They were a little drunk, just drove off a cliff, crashed, burned. Everyone died. All the kids, the wife, you know, and the father, the guard who beat him up really bad, you know. And then all the guards were acting really nice to the devotees after that. And they started inquiring more about this Krishna consciousness, you know, and then started to treat them well, give them things they wanted after all that. And even still, Rsi-Kumar Prabhu didn't put any fault on the woman. He was so like humble, he basically said like, you know, it was due to some propaganda or something. He wasn't even mad at the woman, basically. But it's just a really far off story. And, you know, and that's the thing, like, the Vaishnavas never really curse people, like, because they're so, but, you know, if they like come around and curse you, if you're that one person, it's probably going to be like super bad, you know. Yeah. They're like really insane, you know, his whole family died, you know, it was crazy. But just see how that curse, how that affected all the devotees, their stay there ended up to be really nice. So it has a lot of effects to that curse as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Could I just clarify on the mic, in case anybody was listening, that I started mentioning that Ajamil example, but that's a different scenario, because he's falling down with sense gratification, but we're specifically talking about Vaishnava Aparad. Just wanted to clarify, because it wasn't on the mic.
That also, there's two categories, right? There's the non-devotee who commits Vaishnava Aparad and suffers a reaction. There's the devotee who commits Vaishnava Aparad and suffers a reaction. So we were specifically trying to find out instances of devotees committing Vaishnava Aparad, getting forgiven and then reinstated, to illustrate the example of the no loss or diminution point that Krishna was making. But I think that's clarified, so yeah.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking about like this. Okay. So I was just thinking that may it be like the difference or what is Krishna gives a promise that my devotee will never perish, and there's also this apichet sudurachara verse when if someone commits the worst thing, what is worse than Vaishnava Aparad. So I was thinking like all the examples in the Shastra when someone committed an offense, somehow or other Krishna arranged for them to be rectified. So my idea was like Krishna is taking responsibility for arranging a situation when that person can be rectified. And because they get so much suffering, they are feeling remorseful, and then they arrange the situation there is a situation arranged for them where they can apologize or somehow be rectified.
Someone on the phone. You already have it?
Yeah.
I was going to call.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna?
Go ahead, Prabhu.
He hung up. Nice. Hare Krishna?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna?
Ask your question, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
Like you call him back if you like.
Not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Prabhu?
Okay, you're on the mic.
Okay, Jai. I just wanted to read a passage from Srila Prabhupada's purport of Canto 7, Chapter 4, verse 28. If one is an offender at the lotus feet of a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, his offenses uproot all his auspicious activities. And then he continues later, here the Lord clearly says that although Hiranyakashipu had received benedictions from Lord Brahma, these benedictions would be null and void as soon as he committed an offense at the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj. So anyways, my understanding from this at least was that by committing offenses, it's not necessarily that one is set back in one's spiritual progress, because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there's no loss or diminution in this path. But that all of one's pious activities or pious credits would be nullified at the offense. Anyways, that was what I previously understood from Prabhupada's books. If that's incorrect, I'd like to be corrected, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, sounds right.
Doesn't that refer to mundane, like piety?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
To turn it on.
Also, I was going on with there's a story, I guess, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about like a devotee or a man like offending like Lord Nityananda or something like that.
In the beginning?
I don't know where, but like Bhakti Vikas Swami, he made a point like in a class he gave, he was saying like how like he made an offense towards like all the Vaishnavas, not only Lord Nityananda, and like and then the verse in there, it says about one man's offense, like the whole village and town like become suffers. Like. So that point was like how that devotee who was in the KGB, like he, beat up all the devotees in Hare Krishna, his whole family got killed and murdered. So that's like a point like that was in there. And also from the Bhagavatam, I haven't read this part, but it says something about like a Muni. He was meditating and then he saw the two fish and then he like fell down, etc. But it said like something like he made an offense to a Garuda, right? Yeah. And then he got rectified at the end or something like that. I guess that's one example of like.
Rectification is not mentioned.
Oh, I don't know.
Yes, Swabari Muni, he
Again,
cursed Garuda.
It's not clear how much Swabari Muni was a devotee also. Like I said, there's two instances. There's instance of non-devotee committing aparadh, and they just lose all pious credit and just fall. But then there's devotee committing Vaishnava aparadh, and then like Jita Girish explained, it seems, you just lose all kinds of intelligence, material opulence, everything is just lost. You lose your life also sometimes. But you come back to devotional service at some point of time.
Well, would the offense of, like, say...
Would the offenses of a non-devotee, would Krishna forgive more easily than the offense of like a devotee who's in the community? Because that non-devotee may just be in just like so much ignorance, that they just don't.
Doesn't seem so. Doesn't seem so.
Because
They may be in ignorance. The Vaishnava may forgive, not Krishna.
That's heavy.
Any other comments, questions? Matajis? Comments? All right. Oh,
Yeah.
Prabhuji?
I wanted to raise another like related topic. I don't know if you heard, there is this prayers to the Vaishnavas, this Vaishnav Sharan by Devaki Nandandas, and also there is like a place or place of pilgrimage where if someone goes, then he is freed from all Vaishnava aparad, and also if someone is.
I've heard that.
I'm just wondering, does that is it really like a thing, and how does it work? Because they.
Yeah, there's a place, where? Konaji? Near,
Somewhere in
Jagannath,
Navadvip.
yeah, I think it's near, Lord Jagannath, what is it that Jagannath, called? The one,
Rajapur.
no, the one that had all this crazy backstory, Lord Jagannath, Rajpur.
Rajapur.
Oh, sorry, you said Rajpur, yeah, and then Vaishnav right next to it, right behind Rajpur.
Where's Rajapur?
Rajapur, what's that Vaishnav, place, right behind Rajapur, there's that little hut in Urkuti or whatever. And he says whoever goes there, like whatever, they get cleared of all Vaishnava.
I mean, also like
Did you read that in Navadvip Mahatmya? Do you remember reading anything like that? We read the whole
I don't
Navadvip
know
Mahatmya. I don't remember reading it.
Deva Brata Prabhu told me that.
There's a place in
Point is,
I not finished because
no, but I finished it. I don't remember reading it.
so.
We finished. We finished reading Navadvip
Yeah, we
Mahatmya.
finished it. No, I don't think it's a Navadvip Mahatmya.
I mean, we read it. We did the whole thing.
Yeah,
I don't remember reading that.
yeah. I mean, I don't think that specific like. Anyway, like that little hut is in the Mahatmya. I mean, there's so much in the Dham that's not in Mahatmya.
It's true, but this is a big one.
Yeah, maybe this Vaishnava Thakur is so miserably like I don't know. I don't know where he
How
got
can
that
one
from.
Vaishnava forgive the offense of another?
I don't know. I don't
That
know.
don't sound nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like also,
Okay. You offend him, I forgive you.
Don't do that. Vaishnava, please forgive my offenses to Thakur Prabhu.
You offend him, I'm your friend, okay?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
so
That doesn't seem to make any
on my phone I have a reference where I think Devaki Nandandas is like the same person as Gopal Chappa, but I'm not sure. I think so.
I mean, if we find an authorized reference, then maybe we can take it. But
I can show it later. I don't have my phone, but like Lord Chaitanya, it says that if someone is like reciting these shlokas of this Vaishnav Sharan prayer, it's also like the same that they are forgiven of their offenses against Vaishnavas.
Which one?
I don't know. Vaishnav Sharan.
Oh, the bhajan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is like the Shruti fal of this.
Yeah, in that bhajan it says like that. We were singing that bhajan as well.
it's interesting.
There's a holy place.
I'll recite it every day.
Shoot.
That's true.
Sorry, I'll turn that bhajan today.
Which one?
Where Indra bathed Krishna and Saradhika was there.
Yes.
There's a place you can go there to repent for your offenses. That's
To Vaishnavas or just offenses?
uh,
Because there are places where you can repent for offenses. We're speaking specifically of the man elephant offense.
Indra and Krishna.
There are many places like that you can go and relieve your offenses.
So,
So I answer unknown.
I mean, in the bhajan it does say.
At least I don't know.
For the
Anybody else knows me know. Tapas.
No. Wait. So I have like, this is like super mental speculation right now. Okay, I'm joking. I'm not, it's not about this, it's about like, remember the story about,
Mental speculation.
okay, no,
it's mental
no,
speculation.
it's not mental speculated, I just don't know the answer, that's all, it's like more of a question.
Question?
Yes, question. So does it count as Vaishnava Aparad when like the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was like in hell and then like he like fell down or like did something and then Bhaktisiddhanta came to him and like, wasn't he like fried out? Wasn't he like, does that consider to be Vaishnava Aparad? Like he came to him and said like, oh like.
He fell down because of
something.
Sensual desires or whatever.
But would that be considered him offending Bhaktisiddhanta? And like, because I thought he got chastised by
Offense
him.
is different range, it's different kind of offense. It's not Vaishnava, it's different kind.
Okay.
I have more of a question. You referenced, I think it was Jai and Vijay. Those are the gatekeepers, right? And to my understanding, it was the 4 Kumars who cursed him, right? And they had to take 3 births as as the demons, right? Well, sorry. But I thought that was this their first arrival to like see Krishna? Like,
Kumaras?
Yeah. Or because I thought that they were just self-realized.
Spoken of in the Bhagavatam, this was their first time going to see, the Lord of Vaikuntha.
So then, how is that the Vaishnava Aparad if they were just like self-realized souls? I thought that they weren't like worshiping. Like,
Yeah, maybe it's not a good example then.
So. I mean,
At that time they weren't actually. At that time they only had the impersonal conception, but then immediately once the Lord of Vaikuntha came there and they smelled the tulsi leaves on his lotus feet, then they became devotees.
the
curse was before that.
Right?
So yeah,
it's like
it wasn't Vaishnava Aparad. That's a good point.
So, and then also just I guess for clarification, like this is kind of this is going off of what you had said, Prabhu, about Krishna may about.
Stop doing some side lecture. You're asking questions.
You said how devotee may forgive, but Krishna won't forgive. Like I thought that if
I didn't say Krishna won't.
Or Krishna may not forgive, but
that's there.
yeah,
That's
it's like.
there. It's there.
But I thought that
He didn't forgive Durvasa. Ambarish had to forgive.
The Rasamuni.
It's there.
Okay, all right. That was all I had. It's just clarification.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.